The shuttle moved through space toward the massive station. Inside, Ambassador Daehyun looked out the window at the structure ahead. Station Epsilon was enormous, bigger than any city on Earth. Thousands of lights dotted its surface. Ships from hundreds of different worlds docked at its ports. Daehyun had been Earth's ambassador for 10 years now. He was a calm man who always thought carefully before speaking. His black hair was starting to turn gray at the sides. He wore the formal blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. Next to him sat Ji-won, his security chief. She was younger, with sharp eyes that never stopped watching everything around them. Her hand kept moving to her empty belt where her weapon usually hung. Today, like always when visiting the assembly, she had no weapon. "I don't like this," Ji-won said quietly. "No weapons. No protection. What if something happens?" Daehyun gave her a small smile. "It's the law. Protocol 7 Alpha. No one carries weapons inside assembly space. It's been that way for 2,000 years. Easy to say when you're not the one supposed to keep everyone safe," Ji-won muttered. The pilot, a young man named Yeon-woo, called back from the cockpit. "Coming up on the docking bay. They're running extra security checks today. Seems like everyone's nervous about something." Daehyun nodded. The tensions in the galaxy had been growing. The Vrelmek Empire, a powerful alien civilization, wanted to take over some of Earth's colonies. Their ambassador, Warlord Thexus, had been making threats for months. The shuttle docked smoothly. As Daehyun and his team walked through the airlock, they entered a world of aliens. Creatures of every shape and size filled the corridors. Some walked on 2 legs, some on 4. Some floated in the air. Some were covered in fur, others in scales. Others seemed to be made of crystal or light. At the security checkpoint, tall robots scanned each visitor. When it was Ji-won's turn, the scanners beeped. A mechanical voice spoke. "Weapon detected. Please surrender all weapons." Ji-won reached into her jacket and pulled out a small knife. She placed it in the collection bin with clear reluctance. The robot scanned again. Another beep. Additional weapon detected. Ji-won sighed and removed a thin metal rod from her boot, then another small device from her sleeve. The other security officers had similar collections of hidden tools and weapons. Finally, the scanners went silent and they were allowed through. "Feel naked now," one of Ji-won's team members whispered. They made their way to the main assembly hall. The room was massive, with seats arranged in circles that rose up toward the ceiling. Each section held delegates from different worlds. The human section was small, just 30 seats. Humans were still new to galactic politics. The opening ceremony began. A hologram appeared in the center of the hall, showing the symbol of the Galactic Assembly, a circle of stars. Various ambassadors stood and spoke about trade, peace, and cooperation. Then Warlord Thexus took the stage. He was a terrifying sight, like a giant insect with hard black armor covering his body. His multiple eyes gleamed in the light. When he spoke, his voice clicked and hissed. "The human colonies in the Delta sector are wasted on such a young species," Thexus said. "Those worlds would be better managed by civilizations with experience. With strength, the Vrelmek Empire offers to take responsibility for those territories." Daehyun stood up. "Those colonies are home to 3 million humans. They will not be handed over to anyone." Thexus turned his eyes toward the human section. "Your species is young, weak. You should be grateful for our offer of protection." "We decline," Daehyun said firmly. Tension filled the hall. Other ambassadors shifted in their seats. Everyone could feel that something bad was coming. The first day of meetings continued without incident. But that evening, as delegates returned to their quarters, Ji-won felt uneasy. Something was wrong. The next morning, Daehyun was reviewing reports when alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed in every corridor. A voice spoke over the communication system. "Emergency. Security breach in Sector 7. All delegates remain in your quarters. Station security is responding." Ji-won immediately went to Daehyun's side. "What's happening?" Daehyun pulled up the security feeds on his datapad. His face went pale. "Terrorists! A group called the Void Seekers. They've taken the main assembly hall. There are hostages." On the screen, they could see armed figures in black armor moving through the hall. They had weapons, lots of weapons. Combat drones floated around them. Dozens of alien delegates cowered on the floor, their hands bound. The station's security forces tried to respond. They moved in with their own weapons and armor. But the terrorists were ready. Explosions rocked the corridor. The security forces fell back, taking casualties. They can't handle this, Jiwan said, watching the chaos. The station security isn't trained for real combat. We have no weapons, Daehyun reminded her. What can we do? Jiwan looked at him, then at her team. Something fierce showed in her eyes. Ambassador, I need permission to act. Daehyun thought for a long moment. If the humans intervened and failed, it would make Earth look weak. If they succeeded, other species might fear them. But people were dying. Do what you need to do, he said quietly. Save them. Jiwan nodded and turned to her team. Gear up, we're going in. With what? One of them asked. We have no weapons. Jiwan smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Then we make some. The human security team moved quickly through the station. They stopped at a maintenance locker and broke it open. Inside were tools, cutting torches, magnetic clamps, heavy wrenches, coils of cable. This will work, Jiwan said, picking up a plasma cutter. She adjusted its settings. Same technology as an energy weapon, just repurposed. Another team member grabbed the magnetic clamps. These can restrain someone as well as any handcuffs. They moved through the maintenance tunnels using paths that the terrorists wouldn't know about. The other aliens on the station watched the security feeds in amazement. The humans had no weapons, but they were going in anyway. Jiwan and her team emerged behind the terrorist position. The first enemy didn't even see them coming. Jiwan used the plasma cutter like a sword, cutting through his weapon. Another human threw a magnetic clamp that attached to a terrorist's armor and locked his arms to his sides. The fight was quick and brutal. The terrorists had real weapons, but the humans were faster, smarter. They used every advantage. They cut power to sections, plunging areas into darkness. They vented air from corridors, forcing enemies to retreat. They used the station's own loading equipment as weapons, dropping cargo containers on enemy positions. Within 30 minutes, it was over. All 12 terrorists were captured. The hostages were free. Not a single delegate had been killed. As the hostages were led to safety, delegates from dozens of worlds stared at the human security team. Jiwan and her people stood there covered in sweat, holding tools instead of weapons. Warlord Thexus approached Ambassador Daehyun. The insect alien's eyes studied the human carefully. I understand now, Thexus said slowly. The old stories. The warnings. Your kind doesn't need weapons to be dangerous. What are you talking about? Daehyun asked. Thexus turned away without answering. But Daehyun saw something in the alien's eyes he hadn't seen before. Fear. That night, Daehyun couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what Thexus had said. Old stories, warnings? What did the galaxy know about humans that humans didn't know about themselves? He pulled up the Assembly's historical database and started searching. There had to be answers somewhere. 2 days after the terrorist attack, the Assembly meetings continued. But everything felt different now. Alien delegates whispered when humans walked past. Some moved away quickly. Others stared with wide eyes. Ambassador Daehyun noticed the change. Humans had saved lives, stopped the terrorists, freed the hostages. Yet instead of gratitude, there was fear. Something was wrong. He was reviewing trade agreements in his quarters when his data pad beeped. An encrypted message appeared. It was from Mion, a human researcher who worked in the Assembly's archives. The message was short but urgent. Meet me in Archive Sublevel 7, come alone. Important discovery. Daehyun told Jiwan where he was going. She wanted to come with him, but he shook his head. The message said to come alone. He had to respect that. The archives were deep inside the station. Daehyun took an elevator down several levels, then walked through quiet corridors lined with data storage units. Very few people came here. Most records were accessed remotely now. Mion was waiting in a small research room. She was in her late 30s with tired eyes behind her glasses. Holographic displays floated around her, showing ancient text in dozens of alien languages. Ambassador, she said quickly, thank you for coming. I found something they don't want us to know. What is it? Daehyun asked. Mion pulled up a document. After I watched what your security team did, I got curious about Protocol 7 Alpha, the no weapons rule, so I started digging into when it was created and why. She pointed at one of the displays. The official story says it was made 2,000 years ago to promote peace. Every species agreed to give up weapons in assembly space. Simple, right? But, Daehyun could hear the doubt in her voice, but there are gaps, big gaps. Some records reference ancient civilizations that no longer exist. When I try to access their files, they're sealed, classified. I need special permission from the High Council. Mion opened another file. Then I found this fragment. It's old, really old. 50,000 years, maybe more. The language is dead, but the translation algorithm worked. Text appeared on the display. Daehyun read it aloud. The progenitors were first. Before protocol, before peace, they turned everything into weapons. Nothing was safe when they were near. Who were the progenitors? Daehyun asked. I don't know, Mion said. That's the problem. Every reference to them is either sealed or deleted. But look at this. She pulled up a genetic analysis. I ran DNA comparisons between humans and samples in the Galactic database. There's a match. An ancient species that existed 50,000 years ago. The genetic markers are almost identical to modern humans. Before Daehyun could respond, an alarm sounded on Mion's terminal. Someone was trying to access their system remotely. Someone was watching them. We need to leave, Daehyun said. He activated his emergency signal. Jiwon would receive it and come running, but before they could move, the lights in the room changed. They shifted to a soft blue glow. The air felt different, charged with energy. A figure appeared in the center of the room. It wasn't solid, more like light given form. It shifted and flowed like water, constantly changing. This was a Luminar, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They were beings of pure energy. Do not be afraid, a voice spoke directly in their minds. I am Elder Quinvash. I mean you no harm. The door burst open. Jiwon rushed in with 2 security officers, but stopped when she saw the glowing being. Ambassador, she asked, uncertain. Daehyun held up his hand. Wait, let's hear what it has to say. The elder's form pulsed with light. You are asking dangerous questions, young humans. Questions that were meant to stay buried. We just want to understand, Mion said. Why is everyone afraid of us? What are the progenitors? Quinvash was silent for a moment. Then the being began to speak, and the story it told changed everything. 50,000 years ago, before any current civilization reached the stars, there was a species from a world you now call Earth. They called themselves humans. They were the progenitors of your kind. Wait, Daehyun interrupted. That's impossible. Humans only achieved spaceflight 200 years ago. The second time, Quinvash corrected, the progenitors built an advanced civilization. They explored the galaxy, not as conquerors but as survivors. Their world was dying, you see. They needed new homes. The elder's light dimmed slightly. But the progenitors had a trait that terrified every species they met. They could turn anything into a weapon. A simple tool became dangerous in their hands. A mining laser became a ship destroyer. A farming machine became a war engine. That sounds like a weapon maker species, Jiwon said. Why is that so scary? Because they didn't build these weapons, Quinvash explained. They improvised them. In the moment. From whatever was available. You couldn't predict what they would do. You couldn't prepare defenses. Every object, every system, every technology became a potential threat when humans were near. Daehyun thought about what Jiwon's team had done with maintenance tools. Plasma cutters. Magnetic clamps. Loading equipment. They had defeated armed terrorists without any real weapons. The progenitors didn't start wars, Quinvash continued. But they ended them quickly, decisively, sometimes by accident. Their very presence destabilized galactic politics. Empires fell not through invasion but through fear. Fear of what humans might do if pushed. What happened to them? Mion asked. The elder's form flickered. No one knows for certain. Some say they ascended to a higher plane of existence. Others believe they returned to Earth and destroyed themselves in a civil war. Their technology failed. Their civilization collapsed. They returned to a primitive state. And Protocol 7 Alpha? Daehyun asked. Was created in their absence, Quinvash said. The surviving civilizations made a law. No species could carry weapons in assembly space. It was insurance. Insurance that if humans ever returned, they would be limited. Controlled. Jiwon stepped forward. But we're not them. We're different. We discovered spaceflight on our own. We didn't remember any of this. The elder's light pulsed with what might have been sadness. Your genetic markers say otherwise. You are their direct descendants. And what you demonstrated 2 days ago proves the trait has survived. You improvised weapons from tools. You adapted. You won without traditional arms. Just like the progenitors did. The room fell silent. Daehyun felt the weight of this revelation. Humanity wasn't new to the galaxy. They were returning. And everyone remembered what happened last time. There are factions within the assembly, Quinvash warned. Powerful groups who have watched your species since you returned to space. Some want to quarantine Earth. keep you confined to your home system. Others want to eliminate the threat before it spreads. We're not a threat, Daehyun protested. We came in peace. We follow the rules. We saved lives. That may not matter, the elder said. Fear is stronger than gratitude, and fear of humans runs deep in galactic memory. Before anyone could ask more questions, the elder began to fade. I have told you what you needed to know. What you do with this knowledge is your choice. But be warned. The storm is coming. Quinvash vanished completely. The lights returned to normal. For a moment, no one spoke. Then alarms sounded throughout the station. Emergency alerts flashed on every screen. A station-wide announcement echoed through the corridors. Emergency assembly session called. All delegates report to the main hall immediately. Topic: Restriction Protocol Omega regarding the human species. Daehyun's data pad lit up with details. Protocol Omega was a quarantine order. If it passed, Earth and all human colonies would be isolated. No trade, no travel. No contact with the rest of the galaxy. Human civilization would be trapped. The vote would happen in 3 days. Ji-won looked at Daehyun. What do we do? The ambassador stared at the alert message. 3 days to save humanity's future among the stars. 3 days to overcome 50,000 years of fear. We fight, he said quietly. Not with weapons. With words. With truth. We show them we're not the progenitors. We're something better. But even as he said it, Daehyun wondered if words would be enough. The human delegates gathered in their quarters. The mood was tense. Everyone knew about the quarantine vote. If it passed, humanity would be cut off from the galaxy forever. Ambassador Daehyun stood at the front of the room. Around him sat 30 humans, everyone from Earth's delegation. Scientists, engineers, security officers, researchers. Each face showed worry. We have 3 days, Daehyun said. 3 days to change minds. 3 days to prove we're not a threat. Ji-won spoke up from the back. And if words don't work? If they vote to quarantine us anyway? Then we'll need an extraction plan, Daehyun admitted. But I don't want it to come to that. Running would only prove their fears right. A young woman named Soo-jin raised her hand. She was a xenobiologist who studied alien life forms. Maybe we can show them we want cooperation, not conflict. I've been working with several alien research teams. We could present our joint projects, show them humans work well with others. Mion added, we should also present the historical evidence. Show them we're being judged for crimes we didn't commit. A man in maintenance coveralls stood up. His name was Taijin, and he was one of the station's human engineers. I have something to report. Something important. Everyone turned to look at him. Taijin pulled up schematics on a display. I maintain the station's systems. Power, life support, structural integrity. While doing routine checks, I found something. Hidden weapons. Lots of them. The room went silent. What kind of weapons? Daehyun asked. Military grade. Energy cannons. Explosive charges. Combat drones. Taijin highlighted sections on the schematic. They're hidden in maintenance areas, storage rooms, even inside the walls. And they all trace back to one source. The Vrelmech, Ji-won said. Taijin nodded. Their technicians installed them over the past 6 months. It's a complete violation of Protocol 7 Alpha. Daehyun felt his mind racing. This changed everything. Why would they do this? I think they're planning something, Taijin said. The weapons are positioned to control key areas of the station. Command center, docking bays, life support. If they activated all of them at once, they could take over the entire station. The quarantine vote, Mion said suddenly. It's a distraction. They're using fear of humans to push through the vote. But if it fails, they have a backup plan. A coup. Daehyun realized she was right. We need evidence. Proof we can present to the assembly. I can get it, Ji-won said. My team can do reconnaissance. Document everything. Before they could plan further, there was a knock at the door. Everyone tensed. Ji-won moved to answer it, staying alert. An alien stood in the corridor. It was Ambassador Keelan from the Shalveth Communion. The Shalveth were aquatic beings who lived in special water-filled suits. Keelan's large eyes stared through the transparent helmet. May I enter? A voice spoke in their minds. The Shalveth communicated through telepathy. Daehyun nodded. Keelan glided into the room on floating technology built into the suit. I come with a message. Keelan's thoughts reached them. From the smaller civilizations, the ones without military might. We have been discussing what we witnessed when you stopped the terrorists. And? Daehyun asked carefully. We believe the quarantine is unjust. You saved lives. You used no excessive force. You showed restraint. The Vrelmek would have killed the terrorists and called it justice. You captured them alive. Hope stirred in Daehyun's chest. Will your people vote against the quarantine? Keelan's form shifted in the suit. We want to, but we are afraid. The Vrelmek Empire nearly destroyed my people decades ago. We fear their retaliation if we support you openly. So you won't help us, Jiwon said, disappointment in her voice. I did not say that, Keelan corrected. We cannot help openly, but we can provide information. Intelligence, there are others like us, 20 or 30 smaller civilizations. Together we might be enough to swing the vote. But we need a reason, something that makes supporting humans worth the risk. Daehyun smiled. I think we can provide that. The Vrelmek are breaking Protocol 7 Alpha. They have weapons hidden all over this station. Keelan's thoughts turned sharp with interest. Can you prove this? We're working on it, Daehyun said. Then I will spread word among our allies. Be ready. Keelan turned to leave, then paused. Your species turns objects into weapons, but you also turn enemies into allies. Remember that. After Keelan left, the team got to work. Jiwon and Taejin planned the reconnaissance mission. They would move through maintenance tunnels, using routes only station engineers knew. Sujin prepared biological suppressants to mask human scents from alien sensors. That night, Jiwon and Taejin moved through the station's hidden spaces. The tunnels were narrow and dark. They wore dark clothing and carried recording devices. They found the first weapons cache in a storage room near the main assembly hall. Energy weapons lined the walls, enough to arm a small army. Taejin recorded everything while Jiwon kept watch. They moved to the next location. More weapons, then another cache, and another. The evidence was overwhelming, but as they were leaving the fifth cache, Taejin's scanner beeped a warning. Someone was coming. Multiple someones, Vrelmek soldiers, appeared in the corridor. Their insect-like armor gleamed under the lights. They carried weapons openly now, not caring about protocol. Leading them was Warlord Thexus himself. His multiple eyes focused on the two humans. Humans, he clicked. You are in restricted areas. You are under arrest. Jiwon's hand moved to her belt. No weapon there, just a maintenance multi-tool. She looked at Taejin. He had a welding torch and a datapad, not much to work with, but humans had learned to make do. Run, Jiwon whispered. They sprinted down the corridor. The Vrelmek gave chase, their armored feet pounding on the metal floor. Energy blasts lit up the tunnel. Taejin pulled up a schematic on his datapad while running. Left here. There's a maintenance junction. They turned sharply. Jiwon grabbed a fire extinguisher off the wall and threw it behind them. It exploded in a cloud of foam, temporarily blocking the Vrelmek's view. In the junction, Taejin opened a panel and activated an emergency seal. A heavy door slammed down between them and their pursuers. It would hold for maybe a minute. They kept moving. Jiwon used her multi-tool to cut through a ventilation grate. They climbed inside and crawled through the ducts. Behind them, they heard the door being cut open. The Vrelmek were still coming. Taejin led them through the ventilation system. He knew every pipe and duct in the station. They emerged in a different section, far from the pursuit. But they both knew what this meant. Thexus had seen them. He knew they had found the weapons. He would accelerate his plans. They made it back to the human quarters and immediately reported to Daehyun. They had the evidence. Videos, recordings, exact locations of every weapons cache. Good work, Daehyun said. Now we can expose them at the assembly session tomorrow. But that night, they never got the chance. At 3 a.m, every light on the station went dark. Emergency systems flickered to life, casting everything in red. Then Warlord Thexus's voice echoed through every speaker on the station. The assembly has become weak, divided, afraid of shadows. The Vrelmek Empire will restore order, starting with the human threat. All humans are to surrender immediately or face consequences. The coup had begun. Daehyun looked at his team. 30 humans against an army. No weapons. Trapped on a hostile station. Jiwon met his eyes. Orders, sir? Daehyun took a breath. We do what humans do best. We adapt, we improvise. We survive. Outside their quarters, they could hear Vrelmek soldiers moving through the corridors, searching for them. The real test was about to begin. The fleet gathered in the darkness between stars. 300 ships from 4 species waiting for the signal to attack. Tae-young stood on the bridge of the flagship watching the final preparations. This was it. Everything came down to the next few hours. The plan was complex but elegant. Diversionary attacks would hit 3 outer systems, drawing Vralth forces away from the throne world. Ji-won would lead a cyber attack to disable orbital defenses. Byung-ho and his commandos would infiltrate the surface and sabotage the planetary shields. And then the main fleet would strike. Everything had to happen perfectly. If any part failed, the whole attack would collapse. The diversionary attacks began first. 3 small fleets jumped into Vralth systems simultaneously, hitting military bases with maximum aggression. The Vralth responded exactly as predicted, sending reinforcements from the throne world. Ji-won sat in her ship, fingers flying across multiple keyboards. Around her, a team of Veltorian cyber warfare specialists worked in coordination. Together, they launched a digital assault on the throne world's defense network. It was like fighting in a maze of code, with Vralth security systems trying to track them down and shut them out. But humans had learned one important thing over 5 years. They were better at chaos than the Vralth. While the enemy tried to follow rules and protocols, Ji-won broke every rule she could find. She crashed systems, created loops, fed false data. The Vralth defenses began to flicker and fail. Byung-ho's infiltration team landed on the throne world surface in stolen Vralth shuttles. They had Vralth identification codes, Vralth uniforms, even Vralth weapons. From a distance, they looked like a legitimate patrol. By the time anyone realized they were enemies, it was too late. The team fought their way to the main shield generator, a massive facility buried deep underground. The fighting was brutal. Vralth guards were well trained and fought desperately. Byung-ho lost half his team getting inside, but they made it. While Krathari soldiers held the entrance, Byung-ho and 2 human engineers raced to the generator core. They planted charges using Hana's specially designed explosives, bombs built from Vralth technology, designed to cause a chain reaction in the power systems. As they worked, Inquisitor Velshara appeared. She had been transferred to Throne World security after losing her ship. When she learned humans were infiltrating the generator, she came personally. She wanted revenge. Byung-ho and Velshara faced each other across the generator chamber. She held an energy weapon. He had only a combat knife. The odds were not good. You cannot win, Velshara said. Even if you destroy this generator, the fleet will destroy you. Byung-ho smiled. Maybe, but you will not see it. He moved fast, faster than she expected. Years of combat had taught him to never hesitate. He dodged her first shot, closed the distance, and struck. The fight lasted seconds. When it ended, Velshara lay dead on the floor, and Byung-ho had a severe burn on his left arm. He activated the charges and ran. The team barely made it out before the generator exploded. The blast was so powerful it registered on seismographs across the planet. The throne world's shields collapsed completely. In space, Tae-young received the signal. Shields down, defenses compromised. He gave the order every commander dreams of giving. All ships attack. The coalition fleet jumped into the throne world system. 300 ships appeared at once, weapons hot, ready for battle. The Vralth home fleet was caught completely off guard. They expected an attack, but not here, not now, not like this. The battle that followed was the largest in galactic history. Thousands of ships engaged across the system. Energy weapons lit up the darkness. Missiles crossed paths. Ships exploded. It was chaos on a scale nobody had ever seen. The coalition used every tactic humans had developed. Hit-and-run attacks, coordinated strikes from multiple angles, fights in misdirection. The Vralth fleet was larger and more powerful, but they fought by rigid doctrine. The coalition adapted constantly, changing tactics minute by minute. Captain Subin performed miracles with her supply ships. She flew through the battle, dodging fire, delivering ammunition and fuel to coalition vessels that were running low. 3 times her ship took hits. 3 times she kept flying. Dr. Hana deployed her final innovation from a support ship far behind the battle lines, a weapon that disrupted Vralth energy shields on a massive scale. When she activated it, dozens of enemy ships lost their protection at once. Coalition forces focused fire on the vulnerable targets and destroyed them quickly. War Chieftain Morgath watched his fleet being dismantled piece by piece. He could not believe it. These species were supposed to be conquered, broken, helpless. Instead, they fought with coordination and determination he had never seen. In desperation, he made his final move. He ordered his flagship to ram the coalition command ship. If he was going down, he would take their leaders with him. Tae-young saw the flagship accelerating toward them. There was no time to evade. His ship would be destroyed. But before Morgath could complete his suicide run, another ship intercepted. General Quan commanded a Krathari battlecruiser. He was an older soldier who had fought the Vralth for 20 years. When he saw Morgath's intention, he made his choice without hesitation. His ship rammed the Vralth flagship at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire visible across the system. Morgath died instantly. Quan died saving the Coalition command. His sacrifice was not forgotten. With their war chieftain dead and their fleet broken, the Vralth finally surrendered. It was not a formal surrender at first. Ships simply stopped fighting and started fleeing. But within hours, a communication came from the Vralth government. They wanted to negotiate peace terms. Ambassador Dae Hyun led the negotiations. He was firm but fair. The Vralth would withdraw from all conquered territories. War criminals would face justice. Technology would be shared to help rebuild destroyed worlds. The age of Vralth dominance was over. The Vralth agreed to everything. They had no choice. Their military was shattered. Their economy was damaged. And most importantly, they had learned that conquest was no longer profitable when the conquered fought back. When the treaty was signed, Tae-young felt a weight lift from his shoulders. 5 years of war, 5 years of loss. Finally, it was over. Humanity could go home. Earth was still there, scarred and damaged but alive. The first human ships to return landed at dawn. Tae-young was on the first shuttle, along with Subin, Hana, Jiwon, and Ambassador Dae-hyun. Byung-ho stayed behind to help with reconstruction on other worlds, but he promised to return soon. They stood at the ruins of what had been Seoul. The city was destroyed, but plants grew in the rubble. Life was returning. Birds sang in the morning light. It was beautiful. Over the next years, Earth was rebuilt. Not as it was, but as something new. A mix of human and alien architecture. A city that represented unity rather than isolation. The Coalition established its headquarters there, making Earth the capital of free worlds. Tae-young retired from military service. He worked on reconstruction, helping to plan new cities and restore the environment. He never forgot the 50,000 people who died so that humanity could survive. But he also never forgot the millions who lived because of their sacrifice. Dr. Hana established the first interspecies university. Students from dozens of worlds came to learn science and technology. She taught them that knowledge was not a weapon, but a tool for building a better future. She looked tired but happy, surrounded by eager young minds. Jiwon became an ambassador representing humanity in the reformed Galactic Council. At 24 years old, she was the youngest ambassador ever appointed. She used her position to advocate for younger species, making sure the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. Ambassador Dae-hyun served as Secretary General of the Coalition of Free Worlds. His patient diplomacy and steady leadership helped turn former enemies into allies. He lived to see Earth bloom again, covered in forests and filled with cities that reached for the sky. Captain Subin ran a shipping company that connected hundreds of worlds. Her ships carried goods, information, and hope across the galaxy. She never forgot the desperate evacuation from Earth, and she made sure no species would ever face extinction alone again. 20 years after the invasion, a memorial was built at the ruins of the old United Nations building. It honored everyone who died in the war: humans, Krathari, Veltori, and Nyx, even Vralth, who had opposed the conquest. The memorial was a simple stone wall with billions of names carved into it. At the dedication ceremony, Tae-young stood before a massive crowd. Humans and aliens, old friends and former enemies all gathered to remember. He was 70 years old now, his hair gray, his face lined. But his voice was still strong. "They believed we were finished," he said. "They thought extinction was our fate. They did not understand what it means to survive, to adapt, to refuse to give up even when everything seems lost." He paused and looked at the crowd. So many faces, so many species. All united now, this memorial is not just for humans. It is for every species that refused to surrender. Every world that chose to fight. Every person who believed in a better tomorrow. They thought it was the end. They were wrong. It was only the beginning. A young child walked forward and placed a flower at the memorial. She was half human and half Krathari, born in the new era of peace. Station Epsilon was in chaos. The Vrelmech soldiers moved through the corridors in organized groups. They carried real weapons, heavy armor, and clear orders. Take control of the station. Capture all opposition. Secure the future of the Vrelmech Empire. In the human quarters, Ambassador Daehyun watched the security feeds on his datapad. The Vrelmech had seized the command center, the docking bays, and the main power systems. Alien delegates were being herded into the assembly hall as prisoners. 30 humans. That was all they had. 30 people against hundreds of trained soldiers. But Daehyun looked at his team and saw something the Vrelmech didn't understand. He saw engineers who could reprogram any system, scientists who understood alien biology, security officers trained in tactics, pilots who knew every ship in the docking bay, and regular people who refused to give up. Listen carefully, Daehyun said. The Vrelmech expect us to surrender or hide. They think without weapons we're helpless. Let's prove them wrong. He divided them into teams, each with a specific mission. Taejin led the engineers. Their job was to take control of the station systems. We can't fight their soldiers directly, Taejin explained, but we can turn the station against them. They accessed maintenance terminals and began reprogramming. Cleaning robots suddenly changed their behavior. Their acid dispensers, meant for removing stains, could also remove Vrelmech armor. Construction drones stopped building and started attacking enemy positions. In one corridor, a Vrelmech patrol encountered a cargo loader. The machine's arms, designed to lift heavy containers, grabbed 2 soldiers and pinned them against the wall. The loader's computer had been reprogrammed to identify Vrelmech armor as cargo. Dr. Sujin led the science team. They studied Vrelmech biology and found weaknesses. The insect-like soldiers were sensitive to certain light frequencies. Sujin reprogrammed the station's lighting systems. When Vrelmech soldiers entered certain sections, the lights shifted to a specific blue wavelength. The soldiers clutched their heads, disoriented. Their compound eyes couldn't handle that frequency. They retreated in confusion. Sujin also synthesized pheromones, chemical signals that Vrelmech used to communicate. She flooded sections with false signals. Enemy units received contradictory orders. Some thought they should advance. Others thought they should retreat. Chaos spread through their ranks. Jiwon led the security detail. They moved through the station like shadows, using maintenance tunnels and ventilation shafts. They hit enemy positions and vanished before reinforcements arrived. In one engagement, Jiwon's team found Vrelmech soldiers guarding a key junction. Instead of fighting, they accessed the gravity controls. The corridor suddenly experienced zero gravity. The heavy Vrelmech soldiers floated helplessly while the humans, trained in zero-G movement, secured the area easily. In another section, they vented atmosphere from corridors where Vrelmech troops were advancing. Not enough to kill, just enough to force them to retreat to areas with proper air. The humans fought smart, not hard. Every station system became a tool. Environmental controls, power distribution, magnetic fields, water pressure, everything. Warlord Thexus watched from the command center, growing increasingly frustrated. His soldiers had weapons, they had armor, they had training, yet they were losing ground to unarmed humans. How are they doing this? One of his officers asked. Thexus understood now. The old warnings, the ancient fears. Humans didn't need weapons because they made weapons from everything around them. Meanwhile, Ambassador Daehyun was working on the diplomatic front. He contacted sympathetic alien delegates through secret channels. Keelan and the Shalvith helped coordinate an underground resistance. Small groups of aliens began sabotaging Vrelmech operations. A technician here would cause a power failure. A maintenance worker there would seal a corridor. The humans weren't alone anymore. The turning point came at the docking bay. The Vrelmech held it with a strong force. If the humans could retake it, they could send messages to the wider galaxy. They could call for help. Pilot Hyunwoo proposed a crazy plan. There's a cargo hauler in Base 7, big one, used for moving freight. We could use it. Use it how? Jiwon asked. Hyunwoo grinned. As a battering ram. They accessed the hauler remotely. Taejin reprogrammed its systems. The massive ship's engines roared to life inside the bay. It accelerated straight at the Vrelmech barricade. The soldiers tried to stop it, but a cargo hauler massed thousands of tons. Their weapons barely scratched it. The hauler smashed through their defenses like they weren't there. Then Hyunwoo reversed the ship's magnetic loading systems. Instead of pulling cargo in, it pushed everything away. Vrelmech soldiers were thrown back by powerful magnetic forces. Their metal armor worked against them. The bay was secured. Mion immediately accessed the communication array and began broadcasting. She sent the evidence of Vrelmech weapons violations to every delegate, every news service, every government in the galaxy. The truth was out. The Vrelmech hadn't just staged a coup. They'd been preparing for it for months, violating the very protocol they claimed to uphold. More delegates joined the resistance. Even species that had feared humanity realized the Vrelmech were the real threat. The tide was turning, but Warlord Thexus wasn't finished. He retreated to the command center with his elite guard. From there, he sent one final message to Daehyun. "Surrender now, human, or I will destroy the station's life support. Everyone dies, including your people." Daehyun looked at the message. Thexus still didn't understand. Threats wouldn't work on humans, not when lives were at stake. "We don't surrender," Daehyun sent back. Ji-won assembled a strike team. The command center was heavily defended. Energy shields protected it. The corridors leading to it were fortified. A direct assault would fail, so they didn't do a direct assault. Taijin found ventilation shafts that ran above the command center. They were too small for Vrelmech soldiers in their bulky armor. Perfect for humans. The team crawled through the ducts. Ji-won led the way with a plasma cutter. Behind her came 3 other security officers and Dr. Sujin. They positioned themselves above the command center. Through the grates, they could see Thexus and his guards below. At Daehyun's signal, Taejin cut power to the entire section. Everything went dark. Emergency lights kicked in, but it was dim. Ji-won cut through the vent grate. The team dropped into the command center. The Vrelmech guards spun around, weapons raised, but Dr. Sujin had already released her prepared gas through the ventilation system. A paralytic agent specifically designed for Vrelmech biology. Within seconds, the guards collapsed, their muscles locked. Thexus tried to activate his personal shield, but the power was out. He reached for a weapon, but Ji-won was faster. She used her plasma cutter to melt the weapon in his hands. The warlord stood there, defeated not by superior weapons, but by superior tactics, by improvisation, by humans being human. "It's over," Ji-won said. "Stand down." Thexus looked at her. Even now, she held no real weapon. Just a tool. Yet she had defeated him completely. "You could kill me," Thexus said. "But we won't," Ji-won replied. She pulled out restraints. "Not weapons, not violence. Just arrest. You'll face justice through proper channels." Thexus was secured. The command center was retaken. Within an hour, all remaining Vrelmech forces surrendered. The coup was over. Galactic peacekeeping forces arrived to find the situation already resolved. They expected to find a bloodbath. Instead, they found order. The hostages were safe. The terrorists were captured. The station was intact, and it had all been done by 30 humans who weren't allowed to carry weapons. As Daehyun walked through the station later that day, aliens stared at him. Some with fear, some with respect, some with both. The quarantine vote was canceled. No one wanted to talk about restricting humanity anymore, but everyone wanted to talk about what they had witnessed. The legends were true. Humans turned everything into weapons, but they also chose when not to use them. That made them more dangerous than anyone had imagined, and somehow it also made them exactly what the galaxy needed.